to chop the head off an infidel. But I am, as yet, only 16.
Sights exalted him, the birds and the trees,
and made him in love with death. I am alone.
He sighed profoundly and flung himself on the earth at the foot of the oak tree.
And in his mind, image followed image.
The oak tree was the back of the great horse that he was riding.
Or the deck of a tumbling ship.
It was anything indeed, so long as it was hard. For he felt the need of something which he could attach his floating heart to. I will,
Orlando thought,
I will write a great poem about the oak tree.
And he tried to describe.
for all young poets are forever describing nature.
He wanted to match the shade of green precisely. The green of the grass. The green of the grass. The greeny, greeny, green of the grass.
But green in nature is one thing, green in literature quite another. What?
A trumpet sounded.
Tomorrow, I will write a great poem about the oak tree. Tomorrow. Orlando saw that his great house in the valley was pierced with lights.
Coaches turned and wheeled.
Horses tossed their plumes.
And why did horses toss their plumes?
Christ Jesus!
The queen had come! Orlando dashed downhill.
He let himself in at a wicket gate.
He tore up a winding staircase.
He tripped.
He was a trifle clumsy. He reached his room.
He scoured his hands.
He managed his neck. With no more than 6 inches of looking glass and a pair of candles to help him, he had thrust on
Crimson breeches.
a lace collar
And shoes.
with rosettes.
As big as double dollies.
He was ready. He was flushed.
He was excited, but he was terribly late. He only reached the banquet hall just in time to sink upon his knees and hang his head in confusion, offer a bowl of rose water to the great queen herself. Such was Orlando's shyness that he saw no more of her than her ringed hand in water. But it was enough.
It was a memorable hand.
A thin hand with long fingers, always curling as if round orb or scepter.
A nervous, crab, sickly hand.
A commanding hand. A hand that only had to raise itself for a head to fall. Yes, the queen had a hand.
Orlando guessed, attached to an old body that smelt like a cupboard.
Come. The queen studied Orlando. She read him like a page. Eyes, mouth, nose, hips, hands. By God, he has the shapeliest legs of any nobleman in England.
He only felt something pressed against his hair.
He had been kissed by a queen without knowing it.
What is your name, dear boy?
Orlando.
Orlando. And what do you want to be when you grow up, Orlando? And I have always wanted a gentleman just your age. How would you like to come to court, Orlando?
To court! That is a very great honor, Your Highness.
Yes. The queen plucked a ring from her finger. The joint was rather swollen. Orlando, I want to give you this ring. I hereby name you my treasurer and steward.
Thank you, Mum.
And the queen took Orlando to court.
For the old woman loved Orlando.
Lands were given him.
A great house assignment.
He was to be the son of her old age.
And the flower bloomed and faded.
And the sun rose and set.
I hope you will stay with me always.
Yes, Mum.
And the flower bloomed and faded. And the sun rose and sank.
Shall we play a game, Orlando?
Yes, Mum. What is the game?
First, you recite a Petrarchan sonnet on my eyes. And then I challenge you to an ode upon my feet.
Yes, Mum.
And, if they are very good, you may kiss me.
Yes, Mum. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate.
That's enough, Orlando. I believe I've heard that one before. But it was very good. And you may kiss me. This
The queen breathed.
is my victory.
And the flower bloomed and faded. And the sun rose and sank.
What is the matter?
Mum?
Are you quite content? You don't seem yourself. Did you enjoy the parakeets from the Azores?
Very much, Mum.
Perhaps you are bored. Perhaps you do not play with boys your own age quite enough.
How can boys my own age compare with the Queen, Mum?
That's the spirit, Orlando.
The long winter months drew on.
Frost covered all the trees.
And the nights were of perfect stillness.
One morning,
The queen was getting dressed.
Your stockings, Mum. Your Gardendale, Mum.
which was tightened and fastened.
Not too tight.
Until the queen floated as if on her own island.
She powdered her face.
She was practicing a speech.
My loving people, I know I have the body but of a weak and feeble woman, but I've the heart and stomach of a king, and a king of England too.
When all of a sudden,
The queen saw in the mirror,
Which she kept for fear of spies.
through the door, a boy
could it be Orlando?
kissing a girl. Who in the devil's name is that brazen hussy? Snatching at her golden sword, she struck violently at the mirror. The glass cracked.
People came running. She was lifted and sat in her chair again.
But she was stricken after that and groaned for many years.
Man's treachery.
It was Orlando's fault, perhaps. Yet, after all, are we to blame Orlando? He was young, he was boyish. He did as nature bade him do.
It is certain, indeed,
That many ladies were ready to show him.
their favorites.
Sevilla's grace in dancing,
Persini.
Was by far the most serious of Orlando's plays.
And the third, Florinda, could not bear the sight of blood and the smell of roast meat made her faint. She took it upon herself to reform Orlando.
Orlando did not much regret it when Clorinda died soon after of smallpox.
Once, however, Favilla was so ill-advised as to whip a spaniel that had torn one of her silk stockings beneath Orlando's window.
I love animals.
Oh,
Orlando now noticed that her teeth were crooked, which is a sure sign of a perverse and cruel disposition in a woman. I'm sorry, but I'm forced to break off our engagement. Forever.
You, Persini, sang in Italian well. Danza, fanciulla, how mio cantar. And she was never without a Spaniard. She fed them white bread from her own plate. Vieni che le mio tesoro, come here, my darling. You, Persini, would have made a perfect wife for a nobleman such as Orlando.
I'll have my lawyers draw up the settlements, darling. Orlando kissed Persini on her serious white cheek.
when with suddenness and severity came the great
Frost.
Birds froze in midair and fell like stones to the ground.
It was no uncommon sight to come upon a whole herd of swine frozen immovable upon the road. The fields were full of shepherds, all struck stark in the act of the moment. One with a hand to his nose, another with a bottle to his lips, a third with a stone raised to throw at a raven who sat as if stuffed upon a hedge.
But while the country people suffered, London enjoyed a carnival of the utmost brilliancy. Frozen roses fell in showers as the Queen and her courtiers walked abroad.
Colored balloons hovered motionless in the air. Lovers dallied upon the bogs.
The ice went so deep and so clear that there could be seen congealed at a depth of a few thousand feet. Here a porpoise, there a flounder.
Orlando was gazing at a frozen flounder 5 fathoms beneath the frozen sea.
When the figure skated by him,
Orlando,
upon seeing the figure,
Shouted in his own mind.
Melon, pineapple, olive tree, emerald, fox in the snow.
all in the space of 3 seconds. He did not know whether he had heard her, tasted her,
seen her,
or all three together. And then the boy skated by.
For alas, Orlando,
A boy it must be.
legs, hands, carriage, were a boy's.
No woman could skate with such speed and vigor.
Orlando was ready to tear his hair with vexation that this fine person was of his own sex. All embraces were out of the question. But no boy ever had a mouth like that.
No boy had those breasts.
No boy had eyes which looked as if they had been fished from the bottom of the sea.
The unknown skater came to a standstill.
She
Was a woman.
A translation. Hello, I am the Princess Marusha Stinilovska Dagmar Natasha Ilyana Romanovich.
Orlando trembled, turned hot, turned cold, longed to crush acorns beneath his feet. Will you come to dinner?
Parlez-vous français?
Oui.
goodness to pass the salt.
A translation, with all the pleasure in the world, madame.
A translation.
Who are these bumpkins?
Does the Duke always slobber like that?
Is the figure with her hair like a maypole really the queen?
Thus began the intimacy between the two, that soon became the scandal of the court.
In one night, Orlando had thrown off his boyish clumsiness and become a nobleman. Everywhere one went, one saw Orlando handing Sasha, the Russian princess, to her sledge.
Your sledge, madam.
Or picking up the spotted kerchief which she had let drop?
Your handkerchief.
But everyone knew Orlando was engaged to another. I wear his sapphire on my left hand. Yet, you foresee you might drop all the handkerchiefs in her wardrobe upon the ice, and Orlando never stooped to pick them up. Orlando! Orlando, I dropped my handkerchief. Orlando! Oops. Orlando, I'm skating. Orlando!
But what most outraged the court?
Was that the couple was often seen to slip under the silken rope which railed off the royal enclosure.
From the common people.
Take me away. I detest your English court. It's full of prying old women. They smell bad. Tis like being in a cage. In Russia, we have rivers 10 miles broad on which one can gallop all day without meeting a soul. I want to leave the court.
Well, do you fancy seeing London?
I don't know. What is in this London?
The Tower? The beefeaters? The jeweler shops? The theaters?
Ah, yes. I would like to see your London.
And so they skated to London on the frozen Thames. They got further and further away from court, hot with skating.
And with love.
They would throw themselves down in a solitary place,
Wrapped in a great fur cloak.
and he would take her in his arms and know, for the first time, the delights of love.
Then, they would speak of everything under the sun.
For instance,
This man's beard.
that woman's skin, a rat that fed from my hand, a face, a feather. Nothing was too small for such talk.
Nothing was too great. Sometimes Orlando would be melancholy,
All ends in death.
but I do not like Orlando to be melancholy. So I speak to him enchantingly, wittily, wisely, but always in French, which I'm afraid loses its flavor in translation. Tu es ma vie, ma cour.
You are a fox, an olive tree, an emerald. Orlando tried to tell her what she was like. Darling, you're but words failed him. He longed for another landscape and another tongue. English was too frank for describing Sasha. In all that the princess said, there was something hidden.
What did she hide from him? One day, we will live in Russia together, where there are frozen rivers and wild horses and men who gash each other's throats open.
Yes, my love. But habits of lust and slaughter did not entice him. One day, after skating for 20 hours,
They reached a part of the river where ships had anchored and been frozen.
Among them was the ship of the Russian embassy.
Oh, greetings, countrymen! I'll be back soon, my love. Wait for me. I only want to say hello to my countrymen.
don't be long, darling.
So, Orlando waited. He walked up and down the ice.
He thought only of the dark forebodings. He would wait no longer.
He dashed into the ship. Orlando blazed into such a howl of anguish that the whole ship echoed.
Sasha!
Oh, Orlando, dear, are you all right?
What is the matter?
You were bent towards a sailor.
You must have been faint.
You kissed him.
You must have been dreaming. The room was very dark. Shadows must have moved. There was a heavy box. I helped one of my countrymen to move it.
You did?
Yes,
It was very dark in the room.
yes. It was very, very dark.
Yes. Kiss me and forgive me my folly. No, I saw you. You kissed him. You did. You did.
I call upon the gods to destroy me if I, Ruhl Romanovich, laid in the arms of a common seaman. I will leave this very night.
Orlando looked at the sailor.
The man was huge.
Well,
Don't leave me, Sasha. You must forgive me. If I am a jealous fool, it is only because I love you.
I forgive you this time. But you must never again doubt me, Orlando. And so, they skated again towards London.
Arm in arm. Suspicions melted in Orlando's breast, and he felt as if he had been hooked like a great fish through the nose and rushed through the waters unwillingly, yet with his own consent. It was an evening of astonishing beauty.
The domes, spires, turrets, and pinnacles of London all rose in blackness against furious clouds.
They sped quicker and quicker to the city.
I used to listen to the wolves howling in Russia in the winter. They sounded like this. Oh!
Orlando swung her across the river so that the gulls swung too.
Orlando, I feel compelled to tell you, I love you for your love of beasts, and for your gallantry, and for your legs.
I can find no words to praise you, Sasha.
You are like a million candled Christmas trees such as we have in Russia, enough to light a whole street on.
And indeed, he looked as if he were burning with his own radiance from a lamp lit within.
Night came on. The royal couple found themselves in the midst of the common people.
A carnival!
All the riffraff of London was there.
Here throwing dice,
There, telling fortunes.
shoving, tickling, pinching,
All pressing forward.
towards the stage.
Shall we stop and look, Sasha?
Oh, please, let's watch. We haven't such things in Russia.
You don't mind sitting so close to the common?
Oh, no. They smell much better than your queen.
That handkerchief which I so love and gave thee, thou gavest to Cassia.
No! By my life and soul, send for the man and ask him.
Sweet soul, take heed of perjury. Thou art on thy deathbed.
I have not yet to die.
Yes, presently.
The melody of the words stirred Orlando like music.
I never did offend you in my life. Never loved Cassio. But with such general warranty of heaven as I might love, I never gave him token.
By heaven, I saw mine handkerchief in his hand. O perjured woman,
frenzy of the Moor seemed to him his own frenzy. It was Sasha that he had killed with his own 2 hands. Ruin and death, Orlando thought. Cover all.
Orlando, do you remember? It was on a night such as this. Dark and cold.
We planned to escape, to leave the court,
To elope.
the time has come.
Jour de ma vie.
It was their signal. Meet me at Blackfriars at the inn at midnight. Horses will be waiting for us.
Blackfriars!
Long before midnight, Orlando was waiting. He checked his things, money, food, wine, compass. Sasha. Where is Sasha?
Sometimes in the darkness, he seemed to see her wrapped about in rain strokes, but still, she did not come.
Orlando was struck in the face by a blow, soft, yet heavy on his cheek. Who's there? He grasped the sword in his hand. The frost had lasted so long that it took him a moment to realize that these were raindrops falling.
Soon, the 6 drops became 60, then 600.
Sasha?
The water rose. Ice cracked off the trees.
Sasha! He would wait. He would wait.
Suddenly, with an ominous voice, St. Paul struck the first stroke of midnight.
Sasha? She will come on the 6th stroke. She will come on the 6th stroke. She will come on the 6th stroke.
The whole world seemed to ring with the news of her deceit.
Through the rain, Orlando could just make out the shape of a ship on the horizon, moving through icebergs.
The ship of the Russian embassy. Sasha. Sasha. Sasha! Sasha!
And then, silence.
The waters took his words,
And tossed at his feet only a broken pot.
and a bit of straw.
I am alone.
The dawn broke with unusual suddenness, and a sight of the most extraordinary nature met Orlando's eyes.
Where there had once been solid ice, there was now racing, turbulent yellow waters.
All was riot and confusion. The river was strewn with icebergs.
What was most terrible was the sight of the human creatures trapped on the ice.
Some cried out and made wild promises to God.
Dear God!
Others stood gazed with terror, looking steadfastly before them.
Others called out for vengeance.
Vengeance upon the dirty Irish rebels!
Others perished, clasping small pots or other treasures to their breasts.
My teapot! My teapot!
Among other strange sights to be seen was a table laid sumptuously.
For 20 on an iceberg.
Or a couple in bed with an extraordinary number of cooking utensils. Orlando gazed, astounded.
But seeming to recollect himself,
He galloped hard along the riverbank
Until he reached his great home in the country.
Orlando now took a strange delight in thoughts of death and decay. Are we so made that we have to take death in small doses daily that we cannot go on with the business of living? I am done with women.
He stood, shaken with sobs, all for the desire of a woman in Russian trousers.
Faithless, fickle, devil, adulterous wench! I must do something. I must do something. raise his hands and let the bird of beauty alight upon his shoulders when horror.
Orlando.
A vulture landed on Orlando's shoulder.
Orlando, I'm waiting.
Just a moment. Oh God.
For love has two faces and two bodies.
One smooth.
The other hairy. You see, it was not love, the bird of paradise, who landed on Orlando's shoulder.
But lust, the vulture.
What's the matter? Why is it you seem flushed? Is something excited you?
No, I'm quite all right, thank you.
Are you stockings have been holding them? Shall I make them for you? And the Archduchess called on him the next day. Orlando!
And the next.
Orlando!
And the next.
Orlando!
Until Orlando realized that his home had become uninhabitable. So, Orlando did what any other young man would have done in his place.
He asked the king,
Please, my lord, send me to Constantinople.
Constantinople.
In Constantinople, Orlando possessed the power to stir the fancy and rivet the eye.
His power was a mysterious one, composed of beauty, birth, and some rarer gift which we may call glamour, and have done with it.
He became the adored of many women.
And some men.
Could someone massage my temples?
And yet, this romantic power, it is well known, is often associated with a nature of extreme shyness. Orlando seems to have made no friends.
So one night, Orlando threw a terrific party.
We happen to have here a letter from one Miss Penelope Hartrop, who attended the party, addressed to her cousin in England. It was ravishing, utterly beyond description. Swans made to represent water lilies, birds in golden cages, and Orlando. To see him come into the room, to see him go out again. Mr. Peregrine said that I looked quite lovely, which I only repeat to you, my dearest, because I know you would want to know.
We also have from the testimony of a washerwoman.
It was kept awake by an headache.
Report that.
I saw a woman of the peasant class drawn up by a rope to Orlando's balcony. A Spanish dancer, I believe, a gypsy, named Rosina Pepita. There they embraced passionately, like lovesick. And with that they went into Orlando's bedroom and drew the curtains so that no more could be seen.
We only mention this event
Quite trivial in the long history of Orlando's many affairs.
Because the next morning,
an extraordinary and somewhat
Inexplicable event occurred. The next morning,
though dogs were set to bark under his window,
still, Orlando did not wake.
morning and evening they tried to wake him. Still, Orlando slept.
on the 6th day of Orlando's trance, the Turks rose against the Sultan, set fire to the town, and put foreigners to death,
Gentlemen of the British Embassy preferred to swallow bunches of peas.
rather than fall into the hands of the infidel.
Still, Orlando slept. was a man.
Let biologists and psychologists determine.
It is enough for us to state the simple fact.
Orlando was a man until the age of 30, when he became a woman, and has remained so ever since.
I want to go home. To England. Orlando bought herself a complete outfit of such clothes as women then wore. And it was in such a dress that she now found herself on the deck of a ship heading toward England. It is a strange fact, but a true one, that up to this moment she had scarcely given her sex a thought. It was not until she felt the coil of skirts about her legs and the captain offered.
May I get a chair for you, madam?
Yes, please. Yes, please. Yes, please. Yes, please. At that moment, Orlando realized with a start the penalties and privileges of her position. This is a pleasant, lazy way of life, to be sure. But could I leap overboard and swim in clothes like these? No.
Dinner?
Yes, please.
A little low fat, madam. Let me cut you just the tightest slice. Just the size of your fingernail.
A delicious tremor ran through Orlando's frame. Birds sang.
Torrents rushed.
She remembered the feeling of indescribable pleasure with which she had first seen Sasha hundreds of years ago.
Madam?
Well, if you wish it, I will have the very thinnest, smallest shiver of corned beef in the world.
Very good, madam.
Nothing is more heavenly than to resist and to yield. To yield and to resist.
She was like a child entering into a toy cupboard.
Her arguments would not commend themselves to mature women.
May I give you more sauce, madam?
How odd. When I was a young man, I insisted that women be obedient, chaste, and scented. Now I shall have to pay my own person for those desires. For women are not,
Judging by her short experience of the sex,
obedient, chaste, and scented by nature. They can only attain these graces through tedious discipline. There's the hairdressing. That alone will take at least an hour of my morning. There's looking in the looking glass. There's being chaste year in and year out. Christ Jesus. When I set foot upon English soil, I shall never be able to crack a man over the head, or draw my sword and run him through the body, or lead an army. All I can do is pour out tea and ask my lords how they like it. Do you take sugar? Do you take cream?
And here she seemed to criticize both sexes equally, as if she belonged to neither.
She was a man. She was a woman. She knew the secrets and shared the weaknesses of each. Oh. At last I know Sasha she really was.
for though Orlando herself was now a woman, it was still a woman that she loved.
And now a thousand mysteries became plain to her.
Her affection gained in beauty what it lost in falsehood.
Sasha on legs like beech trees, grape clustered, pearl hung. Which is the greater ecstasy, the man's or the woman's? Don't go, I have much to tell you, much to ask.
Let me point out to madam.
trembled on his arm who'd once been a duke and an ambassador, and hacked heads off and lain with loose women.
And finally, just there, the dome of St. Paul's.
To which she would restrain them. Tears came to Orlando's eyes. And then, remembering that it is becoming in a woman to weep, she let them flow.
Dear old London. Will you need an escort, madam?
No, thank you, sir. And without anyone's assistance, she set foot upon her native shore.
It was a fine evening in December when Orlando arrived home.
Home, my lord. My lady. My lord. My lady. Orlando comforted her maids with a hearty kiss upon both cheeks. The post.
My lady.
Thank you. If my lord is a lady now, I've never seen a lovelier one.
I've always had my suspicions.
And for my part, what with the towels needing mending, it's high time we had a mistress. Upon opening her mail, Orlando realized that she was now a victim of 2 major lawsuits.
One, that you are dead, and therefore cannot hold any property whatsoever.
2, that you are a woman, which amounts to much the same thing.
Christ Jesus! So, while the old servants gossiped, Orlando took a silver candle in her hand and roamed once more through the halls, the galleries, the courts, the bedrooms. In this window seat, she had written her first verses. In that chapel, she was buried. She who believed in no immortality could not help feeling that her soul would come and go forever. With the reds on the panels and the greens on the sofas. The house was no longer hers. It belonged to time. I am losing some illusions, she thought. Perhaps to acquire others. The next morning,
With fresh pen and paper.
Orlando started again upon her long poem.
The oak tree.
And then I came to a field.
When suddenly a familiar shadow.
A grotesque shadow.
The shadow of no less than...
The Archduchess Harry Griselda Finster Arlord skipped a boom in the Romanian territory.
Appeared.
I fled all the way to Constantinople to avoid that fatal foul. A plague on women. They never leave one a moment's peace.
A heap of clothes lay on the ground, and in place of the Archduchess,
Stood a tall gentleman in green.
Orlando was alone with...
A man. Recalled thus suddenly to a consciousness of her sex, Orlando felt seized with faintness. La! How you frighten me.
Oh, gentle creature, forgive me for the deceit I have practiced on you.
Indeed, it was very cruel of you to deceive me.
In short, they acted the parts of man and woman for 10 minutes. With great vigor.
La! How you frighten me.
And then the two fell into natural discourse.
Dearest lady, my story is a tragical one. I am a man. And have indeed always been one. I saw a portrait of you long ago in the times when you dressed in the stockings of a man, and I fell hopelessly in love with you. I knew no way of winning you but to dress as a woman. I was desolated, ruined when you fled to Constantinople. For to me, you were and will always be the pink, the pearl, and the perfection of your sex.
If this is love, there's something highly ridiculous about
I shot an elk in Sweden.
Was it a very big elk?
Well, it wasn't as big as the reindeer I shot in Norway.
Have you ever shot a tiger?
I've shot an albatross.
Is an albatross as big as an elephant? Look, it's beginning to rain.
adore you.
Will you have a cup of tea?
Yes, please.
One lump or two.
One, please. My darling.
I know a game.
Huh.
You see that fly buzzing about?
Yes.
I bet you 500 pounds that that fly will settle on my lump of sugar rather than yours.
Well, that's a delightful game, my darling. I bet you 500 pounds.
I won 500 pounds, please. What is the good of being a fine young woman in the prime of life if I had to pass all my mornings watching flies with an archduke? There must be some way out of this difficulty.
But she was still awkward in the arts of her sex, as she could no longer knock a man over the head.
Orlando thought of a plan. Oh dear, I do believe my plants are dying.
Oh,
While the Archduke was gazing at her plants, Orlando gently pressed the life out of a fly.
I'm sorry, little fly. There, quite dead.
Her reckoning was that the Archduke would detect the fraud, and as cheating is a heinous crime, he would refuse to have anything further to do with her.
Lo, I've won again while you weren't looking. See?
well, so you have, my pretty. Why, I didn't even hear a fly buzzing about.
A dead fly looked much the same to him as a living one. She played the trick 20 times, and he paid her over 20,000 pounds.
Finally, the Archduke could be deceived no longer.
That fly is dead. You killed that fly. You pasted it onto your sugar lump, didn't you? Did you?
Yes.
That won my fortune is nothing. You're welcome to it. It's just that you did deceive me. It hurts me to think you were capable of it. Love a woman who cheats at play is, I'm afraid, impossible. And yet, you are, after all, only a woman. Why, allowances must be made. Perhaps I can forgive
gusts.
But what was worse, damp crept into every home.
And so, rugs appeared. Beards were grown. Everything was covered. Nothing was left bare.
The muffin was invented, and the crumpet.
Coffee led to a drawing room in which to drink it, and a drawing room to glass cases.
In glass cases to artificial flowers, and artificial flowers to mantelpieces.
And mantelpieces to pianoforte.
And skipping a stage or two.
To innumerable little dogs, mats, and china ornaments.
The whole was completely altered.
Meanwhile, the spirit of the age was blowing, now hot, now cold on Orlando's cheeks.
That is, the blushes came and went with the most exquisite degree of modesty and shame.
Orlando was becoming a little more modest of her brains and a little more vain of her person.
The change of clothes had much to do with it, vain trifles as they seem. Clothes change our view of the world and the world's view of us. In fact, there's much to support the view that it is the clothes that wear us and not the other way around.
Orlando now became conscious of an extraordinary tingling and vibration. Her arms sang and twanged, her hair seemed to erect themselves. All this agitation seemed at length to concentrate in her arms, then in her hands, then in one hand, and then in one finger of that hand, forming a ring of quivering sensibility about the second finger of her left hand. When Orlando raised that finger to see what caused all this agitation, she saw nothing.
The vibration seemed to say, in the oddest way, no, that is not enough.
Light. A lover.
And the spirit of the age would always reply, no, Orlando, life, a husband.
Until Orlando became positively ashamed of the second finger in her left hand without in the least knowing why. Grimstitch, let me see your hands. Let me see your ring for a moment. I'll just pull it off for a moment.
No! Your ladyship may look, if you please, but as for taking off my wedding ring, neither the Pope nor Queen Victoria could force me to. Why, since my Thomas put this ring on my finger 25 years, 6 months, and 3 weeks ago, and that's an exact figure, your ladyship. I've worked in it, washed in it, slept in it, and prayed in it. In fact, it's by the gleam in this here ring that I'll be assigned my station among the angels, and its luster would be tarnished now and forever if I let it out of my keeping, even for a wee bit.
I'm sorry, Grimstitch. I didn't realize. Heaven help us, what a world we live in. What a world, to be sure. For to Orlando it seemed that the whole world was ringed in gold. She went to dinner, wedding rings abounded. She went to church, wedding rings everywhere. Orlando could only suppose that there had been some new discovery made about the race, where everyone was stuck together, couple after couple. It was strange, indeed, it was distasteful.
And yet the tingling on Orlando's left finger persisted more violently than ever.
Stop tingling! I will write. I will write.
She picked up her manuscript, the oak tree.
She dipped her pen in ink
Felt the breath of Queen Victoria on her cheek.
and wrote the most insipid verse she had ever read in her entire life. Oh dear.
The only thing to do was to submit to the spirit of the age and to take a husband.
Whom?
She asked with the wild autumn winds, looking the very image of appealing womanhood she did so.
Whom can I lean upon?
It was not Orlando who spoke, but the spirit of the age.
I am mateless. I am alone.
Orlando walked over the moor, up the hill. She picked up a feather and put it in her hat.
She had a wild notion of following the birds to the end of the world.
She ran, a strange ecstasy came over her.
And she tripped.
I do believe my ankle is broken. And yet, I am content. I have found my mate. My hand shall wear no wedding ring. I shall be nature's bride. Orlando heard deep within some hammering. Or was it a heartbeat?
Tick tock, so it hammered, so it beat.
Until it changed, the trot of horses.
What?
The voice was almost upon
Marmaduke Bondrop Shelmerdine, Esquire.
Marmaduke Bondrop Shelmerdine Esquire. I knew it, for there was something romantic and passionate, chivalrous, melancholy, yet determined about it. My name is Orlando.
Orlando. I knew it. For if one sees a ship in full sail proudly sweeping across the Mediterranean from the South Seas, one says at once, Orlando. You see, though their acquaintance had been short, they guessed as always happens between lovers. Everything of any importance about each other in 2 seconds at the utmost.
And now it only remained to fill in such unimportant details as what they were called,
Where they lived.
whether or not they were beggars. You're not a beggar, Shell, are you?
I once had a castle, but it was ruined, so I became a sailor. How did you know?
I guessed it. And the winds, they went the wrong way sometimes?
Yes, the wind went violently the wrong way, so I
Stop
stopped
for the night.
Yes. And I'm due to leave for the South Seas tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Oh, Shell, don't leave me. I'm in love with you.
No sooner had the words left her mouth than an awful suspicion rushed into both their minds at once.
You're
a man,
woman,
Orlando.
Shell. You think I'm a man? No, I am very much a woman.
And you, for a moment, thought I was a woman? How ridiculous. But you are so entirely sympathetic, and you never take more than 10 minutes to dress. How can it be?
And you have a passion for peppermints, and you blush so easily. How can it be? And they talked 2 hours or more, perhaps about the sea, perhaps not about the sea. And it would profit little to record what they said, for they knew each other so well that they could say anything, which is tantamount to saying nothing.
Once I was sailing the South Seas and was caught in a terrific gale. Master snapped off sails were torn to ribbons.
Christ Jesus, how exciting! Then what?
The ship sank, and I was left, the only survivor, on a raft, holding a biscuit.
And?
I ate the biscuit. It's about all a fella can do nowadays. Are you positive you aren't a man?
Can it be possible that you're not a woman?
And then I must put it to the proof, without
Yeah,
more
more
ado.
ado.
When it was over, Orlando had tears in her eyes.
Tears of a finer flavor than any she had cried before. I am a woman. A real woman at last. Thank you, Shell, for this rare and unexpected delight.
You're welcome, Orlando.
For each was so surprised at the quickness of the other's sympathy that it was to each such a revelation that
A woman could be as tolerant and as free-spoken as a man.
and a man as strange and subtle as a woman
So they would talk.
and talk.
How to cook an omelet.
Where to buy the best boots in London.
Yes?
Yes.
And when Orlando's feet were covered with spotted autumn leaves,
Bonfront.
she would say.
Emma.
When she called him his second name,
Bonfront.
it should signify that she was in a solitary mood, though the boat was specks on the desert.
For people die daily. Die at dinner tables or out of doors in the autumn leaves. And so saying, Bonfront,
She said in effect,
I'm dead.
after a few hours of death, usually a bird would shriek,
Shelmerdine!
and she would come to life again.
As though returning from a voyage on a ship which had heaved and tossed and finally rides over the crest of a wave. Shelmerdine!
What is it, Orlando?
I'm alive, darling Shell. It's past now.
Until one day, they got married.
have shrunk. It was more than a little alarming. And look, the lights in the houses. Hundreds of little rooms, all lit, one precisely the same as the other. One can see everything in those little square-shaped boxes. There's no privacy. None of those lingering shadows, no women in aprons carrying wobbly lamps. At a touch, the whole room is bright. The sky is bright all night long.
The clock ticked louder and louder until there was a terrific explosion in Orlando's ear.
Orlando leapt as if she had been struck on the head. 10 times she was struck. In fact, it was 10 o'clock in the morning. It was
The present moment. No one need wonder that Orlando pressed her hand to her heart and turned pale.
For what more terrifying revelation can there be than that it is the present moment?
That we survive the shock at all is only possible because the past shelters us on one side and the future on the other.
But we have no time for such reflections now.
Orlando was terribly late.
She hopped into her motor car.
Vast blue blocks of buildings rose into the air.
She saw sponges.
Bird cages.
Boxes of green American cloth.
Here was a market.
Here was a funeral.
Meat was very red.
But she did not let these images sink into her mind even the fraction of an inch. Why don't you look where you're going?
For the streets were immensely crowded.
People buzzed and hummed everywhere as if they were bees.
Why don't you look where you're going?
Orlando jumped out of the motor car, ran into a large department store, and got into the lift.
This must be middle age.
4.
Time has passed over me.
6.
How strange it is. Nothing is any longer one thing. I take up a handbag and I see a frozen porpoise at sea. Someone lights a candle and I see a girl in Russian trousers. How strange.
7.
I see mountains, I hear goat bells, but where? Turkey, India, Persia? I can't think.
Linens.
I need sheets for a double bed.
Yes, ma'am.
I scarcely look a day older. I look just as rosy as I did that day on the ice, when the Thames had frozen and we had gone skating.
You are like a million candle Christmas trees such as we have in Russia.
Sasha?
Enough to light a whole street by.
Sasha, is that you?
And the figure walked through swinging doors. A whiff of scent as though from pink candles following her figure.
Was it a boy's figure or was it a girl's?
Young, slender, seductive.
A girl's, by God, furred, curled, and in Russian trousers. But faithless. Faithless. Oh, Sasha, why?
Best Irish linen, ma'am. Any napkins, towels, dusters today for you, ma'am.
There's only one thing in the world I want today, and that is bath soaps.
You'll want to take the lift to the first floor, ma'am.
Thank you.
Your bed sheets, ma'am.
And can we blame her for forgetting her bed sheets when she was actually hundreds of years old? For the true length of a person's life is always a matter of dispute. Of some, we can justly say that they lived the 68 years allotted them on the tombstone. Others are hundreds of years old, though we may call them 36. It is a difficult business, this timekeeping, and nothing more quickly disorders time than contact with any of the arts.
Confound it all, I've forgotten my bed sheets. No matter, I want more than anything to go home.
Without her bed sheets or her bath soaps, Orlando hopped into her motor car.
Nothing could be seen whole or read from start to finish. She saw signs. Cadbury, chocolates, Ral against unmen Apple John Underticker.
And they flashed by, unread.
For what one saw beginning,
Like two friends starting to meet each other across the street. was never seen ended. After 10 minutes, the body and mind were like scraps of torn paper tumbling from a sack.
She motored out of London so entirely disassembled that it is an open question as to whether she existed at all.
Orlando hopped out of his motor car, walked into her home, and called, "Orlando! Orlando, come here! I am sick to death of this particular self. I want another."
Orlando, for she had a great variety of selves to call upon. The boy who sat under the oak tree.
The young man who fell in love with Sasha.
The boy who handed the queen a bowl of rose water.
The poet. The fine lady.
The woman who called Mar.
Or Shelmerdine.
Or Von Trapp.
Orlando! Haunted ever since I was a child, flinging the net of words after the wild goose of meaning, and everything shrivels. Orlando?
Still, the Orlando that she wanted did not.
Come.
All right then. Who am I? 36, owns a motor car. A woman, yes, but a million other things as well. Am I a snob? Proud of my ancestors? I don't give a damn if I am. Truthful? I think so. Generous? Oh, that doesn't count. Spoiled? Perhaps. Clumsy? Absolutely. I love trees and barns and the night, but people, I don't know, chattering, spiteful, always telling lies, and yet love. What of it? Flies on the ceiling? Sasha? Marmaduke?
The great wings of silence beat up and down the empty house.
All was lit, as if for the coming of the dead queen.
The house is at your service, Mum. Nothing has been changed.
What's wrong, Orlando?
Wrong?
You don't seem yourself.
I don't believe that there is such a thing, Your Highness.
Don't be silly, Orlando. You are many things to many people. To me, you are a boy with delightful legs in silk stockings. Apparently you have changed, but no matter. The dead have wonderful memories.
At the present moment, I would like to feel as though I am only one thing.
Poppycock.
Don't be a bore, Orlando. You were never a bore in silk stockings.
What is death like, Your Highness?
Oh. That. Nothing really. Just a prick in the sides. My sinuses are unbelievably clear. All is air.
I long for death at moments.
You've always been morbid, Orlando. But when I knew you, you were filled with life. Exquisitely, you were bursting with it.
I remember.
Perhaps it's the spirit of the age.
Perhaps. We don't know why we go upstairs or why we come back down again. Our most daily movements are like the passage of a ship in an unknown sea.
Look, Orlando. There is the wild goose in the garden.
Where?
Just there.
The wild goose. And the secret of life is...
A small kiss. For old time's sake.
that she was married.
She was married, true, but if one's husband was always sailing around the world, was that marriage?
And if one liked him, was it marriage? If one liked other people, was it marriage?
And finally, most importantly,
If one wished more than anything in the whole world to write poetry, was it marriage?
She had her doubts.
But she would put it to the test.
She flung herself under the old oak tree. She took up her poem.
Sea-stained, blood-stained, travel-stained.
She had been working on it for close on 500 years now.
She looked at the ring. She looked at the ink pot.
Did she dare?
Hang it all, here goes.
She plunged her pen neck deep in ink. To her enormous surprise, she wrote. The words were a little long in coming, but come they did.
and all the time she was writing, the world continued.
Through wars and other calamities.
She listened for the sound of gunfire at sea.
No, only the wind blew.
There is no war today.
And so, she wrote.
What is life? She asked a bird.
Life, life, life.